Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of JJD's Vintage Chainsaws. Today I'm doing another brief discussion video on another really old Lombard saw in my collection. This one is a Model 3A, and it has the obligatory U-shaped handle and another Tillotson float carb. I think this is another MD60A or something very similar. Again, to decipher the models for Lombard, we go by the serial number. This one is YS15305. Now, the fact that it has a serial number greater than YS15000, coupled with the fact that it has the U-shaped handle, is the essential diagnosis for this being a Model 3A, not 316. And I couldn't tell you if this one would have had an engine tag that said 316 on it. Let me just go the other way with this, because as you can tell, there is no engine tag. The starter shroud is completely missing. Now, this one came to me. It was another one I got on eBay for easy money. It was a seized carcass, and it's still not running. I have to admit, it does need some work. Originally it was seized, but I was able to get it freed up with a torque wrench on the flywheel. And actually, I didn't have to spin it too hard. It just more or less popped free when I gave it a couple cranks in either direction. I did repaint the tank. I didn't really do a good job because it's already starting to chip, but I just gave it one coat of red paint to see how it would look. And I kind of like how it looks, so I might move a little forward with restoring more of this saw. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but when I spin that, the bearing is not good. I would not do any serious cutting with this for fear of it just going kerplooey. But being a project saw, I don't really mind. You know, and it's another cool little entry in my growing collection of wonky Lombard chainsaws from the 1950s. Another open sprocket. It's got a half-pitch chain on it. Oregon brand chain, number 10. And I just measured the pitch on it. The distance between 3 of the rivets divided by 2 to normalize for rivets that aren't evenly spaced. It looks like in this case they are evenly spaced, but you know, the reason you do 3 and divide by 2 instead of just doing distance between 2 rivets, not all the rivets are evenly spaced, so that's how we normalize it. But anyway, just a little bit more trivia for you. When I got the saw, I wish I saved it to show you guys. The flywheel was as you see it, and instead of this goofy little castle nut I put on there, the previous owner, I don't know if it was the seller or just the previous owner, had swedged the end of the crankshaft around a goofy little pulley that they stuck on there, I guess in an attempt to just be able to start it by wrapping a rope. The trouble was, the rope was actually more or less tied to that goofy little pulley. So if you were able to start the saw with that mechanism, you would just be flinging the rope around every which way when you went to start it and when it was running. And that's a no bueno. We don't want that. And I was really disappointed when I first saw that, because I thought, geez, you know, there's not going to be enough room for me to chase the threads and get a nut back on there. But I was wrong. I was actually able to sift around in my grandfather's nut bucket over in the orange drawers there and find a cheesy little castle nut for it that's the right thread count and the right diameter. Now, I could not find the right, I forget the specs off the top of my head, I could not find the right nut at Tractor Supply or Walmart or your favorite hardware store. It was just one of those weird pitches and sizes that, it was English, it wasn't metric, it was English. This is an American saw. But for some reason I couldn't find it. But fortunately, Jaji had an old castle nut, which was never used because it's still nice and shiny, as you can see. So I was able to chase the threads with a tap and die, and it was, you know, pretty seamless to do that. There are a couple other things about this saw that I would like to highlight. Again, this was another one with the exhaust stack that had the 5 holes that were again dremeled out. Now, I think that was done again to improve airflow, but it, you know, I can see the tooling marks on there. I don't know if you guys can see those. So the holes were definitely there, and they were definitely dremeled. The engine actually itself does have decent compression. I want to say it was north of 90 psi when I tested it, which is more than enough for these AH-47 engines to run. Again, these were never high compression engines to begin with. So the fact that it had north of 90 psi, I've got saws like this that run well at 75 or 70 psi. So no big deal. This one came with the fuel cap, which again is a wonky thread pitch, and it's so often lost in transit. These things have a nasty little habit of wobbling free and growing legs and walking away from the box. But fortunately I have that one. It has no spark in its current situation, in its current standing. And I'm not pulling the flywheel off right now, but the reason it has no spark is the points are actually broken. There's that little fiber, it's not a wood thing, it's like a fiber plastic thing. I call it a points arm. That's broken. So one of the points is just gone. So this thing has no chance of having spark in its current setting. I did on eBay find a seller that had points and condenser and essentially the whole ignition setup for a Model 70. And again, I'm still familiarizing myself with the parts and the part numbers. I honestly don't know if it's going to fit or not, but it was easy enough money. It was really, really cheap for what it was. So I said, screw it, I'm going to go ahead and grab it for $5-6 plus the cost of shipping. Go ahead and grab it. And if it doesn't fit this saw, then I might just have to pick up a Lombard Model 70. Ooh, no offense taken there. So I haven't really decided quite yet about this project going forward, if I'm going to continue to paint it and restore it. The bearing really has me concerned, so I'm not going to do much cutting with it at all. If anything, I'll just get it running and make a video of it running, and that'll be that. It is missing a couple other things. The throttle return spring on the carburetor is completely gone. Again, this camera quality kind of sucks, but I can manipulate this lever all I want, but gravity is what returns the spring, not the spring tension itself. And actually, to actuate the throttle, you squeeze the plunger down. So I don't know why I'm sitting here talking about gravity returning the spring, because it's going the wrong way. Not going to work in its current standing. With the other Lombard 316 Wizard saw, I was actually able to... it's really kind of hokey, but I was able to take a spring essentially like this, and with a little piece of cloth on the handle to protect the handle from getting scarred up, removing the chrome finish and so forth. I was able to connect a spring like this to the throttle linkage and actually have the spring just sitting on the handle, and that was enough to actuate it back and forth. Worked well enough for me. I mean, again, I'm not a purist with these things. These saws are so old, and trying to source parts for them can be a real pain in the you-know-what. So, in lieu of spending outrageous elephant bucks on OEM parts, I'll just rig something together with springs and screws and whatever the heck I have laying around in the shop. I mean, my grandfather he wasn't really a hoarder, but we'll say he was frugal. He kept screws and nuts and washers and everything from old appliances he was throwing out. He would pull all that crap off and throw it in washer bins, and, I talk about a coffee can full of screws and nuts. That's where hardware for this saw is likely going to come from, and I'm okay with that, because I'm not a purist. I just want to hear these things run again. I just want to give it hope again. I've got a real soft spot for these old Lombards. It's a local brand to me. What's funny about this is, it's funny, the chain has two different codes on it. It has the number 10 Camera quality's not going to pick it up, so I'm not even going to, you just have to believe me. It has the number 10 down on the bottom of the drive link that rests inside of the bar slot, and then on top of the raker it has the number 4. Now, I thought number 4 chain was 9/16. I have to go back and check my check the manual and see what's what, but again, the distance between 3 rivets is 1 inch, and 1 inch divided by 2 is 1/2 inch pitch. This is 1/2 pitch chain, and as you can tell, it still has quite a bit of life left. I'd say it's about half used up looking at the gullet on this thing, but you know, anyway, another really cool old Lombard saw to have in the collection. You know, whether or not it runs again remains to be seen. I'm confident that I can get it running based on what I've been talking about. But you know, these old saws they're like playing whack-a-mole. You solve one problem and 3 more pop up. That's half the fun of project saws. But with any amount of luck, soon enough I'll have a video of this thing at least attempting to start, and maybe we'll even see something exciting like it blowing up and throwing a bearing and completely self-destructing. I don't know. I gotta go back in there and tighten the stator plate too. That ain't helping anybody, but anyway, I've been getting some really good feedback from some of you guys on these discussion videos, so I'd like to continue this format going forward. I'm not much of an editor. I more or less just take raw footage with my phone, like I'm doing now, and upload it, you know, so I'll upload this discussion piece as soon as possible, and with any amount of luck, this one will be a runner pretty soon. But you know, until then, I'm just as happy looking at it, talking about it. You know, these saws are really old now, and I think this is another, like, maybe 1953, 54. I believe this one came out between the 3/16 Wizard and the 3.5D Woodlot Wonder. I believe this one is also known as a Woodlot Wonder. There are some myths going around online that, oh, you know, Lombard saws were never called Woodlot Wizard. The early ones were. The early one-man saws with AH-47 engines, the Model 3 and the submodel 3/16, were known as the Wizard. I don't know if it had the Woodlot prefix, but it was known as the Wizard saw. I have a document from that time period, 1951, 1952, that suggests, or really calls for, a Model 3 Wizard. So, you know, that's kind of a bone of contention among Lombard enthusiasts. Was it or was it not ever called the Wizard? But I'm getting off topic now, not related to this saw. This saw is a Model 3A Woodlot Wonder. And again, I know it's a 3A because the serial number is greater than YS 15,000. And I have a document that I'll have to share with you guys that stipulates the saw models based on their serial numbers. So when we have all these wonky parts combinations and engine tags on the starter shroud that have no basis in reality as to what the model is, we can always refer back to the serial number that's on the gear case, and that will tell you, with a little decoding, what the model is. So, Model 3A has compression, not running, but hope to get it running sometime soon. If not, it's a great showpiece. Shelf queen, as they say. So, until the next video, guys, take care, stay warm, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.